Some very impressive posters and banners around.
Yes, and signs, even road signs. Some have been modified slightly, I believe, but it says if you come to Stonehouse needs a hospital. Stonehouse Hospital is too far away to go any other hospital. We can't afford to lose it. And the crowds here today just proves it. Thanks very much. It's going.
I'm worrying against the
We shouldn't. How long were you working?
I've been working 16 years and I come back on as a bank nurse now for a little while. You see, I'm
How about you, Chris?
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
12 years.
We can, because we actually want to convince him this morning with our arguments in favour of the retention of the hospital, and we also want to show him what a united community we are and how important this premise is to our local community. Thank you all very much indeed for turning out in such wonderful numbers, and please give our visitor as warm a welcome as you possibly can, because he is certainly in a position to influence things, and he's certainly a man that we should have on our side. Let us make a friend of this man, not an enemy, and an expression which I'm very fond of using, and I'll use it again this morning, is you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yes, I sit on hearings with you.
Sorry. Please.
I'm interested because, you know, to cross the border, that you've shown very good solidarity today.
Well, yes, because people are helped when our hospital was back.
Yeah, they give some tips.
So, we thought, you know, we should have a little support here. I think it's essential.
Yeah, yours is And have you brought lots of people from like with you?
No, I did try to get a few to come.
Well, that's lots of people, isn't it?
Yes.
If you move around a lot.
Yes, I put the word out, but it was Saturday morning when they've been working all week. You know,
All the clan contingent, eh? There's quite a lot, I should say. And you all do the other side clan, didn't you? The other side clan, yes. You what?
Pardon?
You're a what clan?
I represent the county councillor for Clown.
You're a district councillor, you know. Yeah. How many years did you work at Stonehouse?
26.
26 years. Sheila, how long have you worked there?
26.
You're not mad, you know, Andy.
26 good years too.
Hurry up, Paul.
26 happy years. I put on my questionnaire. 26 happy years.
I looked away.
Peaceful demonstration.
And you representing when you've got the wife up there. One? I've got the wife up there with her arm breaking over the placard.
News of the world, is it?
A bit of politics.
Oh, is it? And so what do you think will happen then?
I don't know. Not a lot, right? No. No, so she's been in hospital. Coming out today, yeah. Alison was pretty...
Well, that's right, and driving from Shrewsbury here, I mean, I'm very conscious, as I've always been conscious, it's a long way from anywhere.
We'd have liked snow.
Yes, that's right.
Thanks for coming.
Then I'd arrive about 2 o'clock. But I'll see you during the course of the morning.
I think he wanted to get inside.
I thought perhaps he was going to make his point that we need Stonehouse.
Yes, I think he might.
Our best, aren't we?
No, he said he was very impressed with the signs he saw on the way to this castle, didn't he? Did you hear him?
Impressed with what?
Very impressed with the signs he saw on the way to it.
Oh.
Good.
Shouldn't he?
That's the problem.
What do you think ought to happen to Stonehouse? Shout out, save Stonehouse. Oh, yeah, got it.
Have you right now?
You're all right.
Where do we press the button? Have you pressed the button?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
This is the first official meeting of the 25 Club.
She's not in it.
Hey, what are you doing?
Hey, what you doing? 1925 committed.
I got you. Do I press the button again?
That'll do.
How long was he in there?
Good Lord.
I
He was away 5 months altogether. He was in there for about a week, and then he went to Shrewsbury for about a week. And then he come back from Smethwick to Shrewsbury for about a week before they got anything going here, and then he finished up his time here. He was here till January.
Oh, I thought so. What are you going to say to me?
Grand place for them as us to go in it.
Yeah.
I hope I never have to, but it's a grand place. And I hope
It's here if you want it.
that's it. And I hope to keep it open.
And to visit your relations.
That's it. Sheila Owls is below you making faces at me.
We show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get out.
He's brought that back in there.
There you are now then. What are you going to tell me?
Well, we want a sweetheart.
Huh? What do you think about the turnout this morning?
Well, it's lovely. Only I had a bit of a job to get down.
Did you?
What I did yesterday or something. I went to my bedroom and I almost got my gun off.
Oh dear.
That's what I had. And it's very sore.
Oh, I see. But you have managed to come. It's a lovely morning.
Oh, it's lovely, I should think. For you all.
Good. I'm glad.
Good big cheers for you.
Thank you.
Today, so we really ought to be there as well.
Pardon?
We've got a jumble sale this afternoon, and we ought to be putting the stuff out, but we decided to come here instead.
I thought this is important, yeah.
Much more important.
We should have had the jumble here.
We should have.
Yes, on the lawn.
It's sold easy, wouldn't it? Okay. Thank you very much.
What do we do? Up or down, do you want? Well, I got that. It's got supporters. Let's turn it back.
There we are. That's good. And you intend to be here all the time? Did you see the man coming, did you?
Yes, always I'm coming.
Good, yeah. That's right. Thank you very much. Well, here more. That's good, yeah. Very good, that.
In the long run. So anyway, if you can just hang on and get the band going again when he comes out, and show him we're still here and we're keeping going and we're going to win it in the end. Thank you.
I thought the demonstration was exceptionally good.
Wasn't it?
A lot of people, very keen. Yeah, stick in there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, everybody's done everything, haven't they?
Oh, yes.
I think so, yes.
Yes, they've absolutely proved that people want a hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no doubt about it. Unless they listen, they're thick.
That carriage, but you look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle made for two. Very good. She was a sweet little
That's never on coffee, is it?
Chip, 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 she went. So pleases to be.
My money was spent.
She went away. She parted on my this day. She was one of the early birds, and I was very good.
How long were you there?
Oh, I was there for years and years.
Long time.
Yes, over 20.
Yeah.
Over 20 years.
And you've just retired?
Well, a year ago now.
Yeah.
A year ago. Somebody asked me, I said, oh, no, what's this? Sorry. Oh, it's a music turnout. Yes.
What do you think of the turnout?
Very good, excellent.
What do you think of the turnout, generally? Man.
Hello.
Thank you for the turnout.
Very good turnout, yes, very good.
You were smoking dead lately?
I haven't done any yet. No, it's a long time ago, that is, Aubrey. many, many years ago.
You've seen Dave Perkins up there, have you?
Hey?
You know Dave Perkins is here?
No, where is he?
Up there, up on the lawn there. Thanks, folks. Thank you.
Good, I'm glad to have the opportunity of meeting you, and it's very good to be in Bishop's Castle this morning. I'm also, of course, very glad to have with me David Lloyd, who's the newly appointed chairman of the Shropshire Health Authority, and Colin Hayton, the general manager. This is the first time that either or three of us have had a chance of actually seeing your hospital, and I would like to pay tribute to the clarity with which Mr. Precious put all the points on your behalf. Neither Mr. Lloyd nor I are in any doubt as to the arguments you've put forward this morning in such a clear way. Our job is not, of course, to say anything in response immediately, but to consider what's been said to us, and that'll be done in the relatively short time. So thank you collectively for your invitation to us. We've learned a great deal, and we're very glad to have had the job of being with you this morning.
Thank you.
Sir James, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for coming here this morning. You've been very patient and listened to all that we've had to say to you, and I hope that you take away a very good impression of our Stonehouse Hospital. Thank you very much indeed for making so much time. What you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's Sir James's wife's birthday today, and he's made a particular effort to be here.
Mr. Precious for all his wonderful work he's done at the meeting today.
Thank you all for coming. It's been great to have you. Real support. Thank you.
I think
good. Where do I take off
around here?
Were you satisfied with the turnout?
It was a very good turnout, excellent.
Definitely, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Dangwall?
Absolutely united.
And you thought it was a very good turnout.
Excellent, absolutely excellent.
John, you're...
Oh, lovely day.
Lovely day. And
Yes, very good.
Oh, you were
very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Tom.
But it's nice to see what the kids
Bill.
achieve.
Very good, don't you?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, you're not taking us now, are you?
Yeah.
I'm presumably taking us now.
Anyway, nice to meet you. Have you ever... It's been good this morning.
Is there anything around?
Yeah, lady used to come back to Wales. It's a wave! Aubrey, wait a minute! Look at that now, Aubrey. Cheers.
That's a good end.
Thank It would be nice if we could now have happy ending, but I'm afraid it's a true life story in a truly hard world. Surely the dark clouds will roll away and we shall achieve our high hopes.
A year ago, the government first made clear its plans to deal with the growing financial problems of the National Health Service. In a major shake-up, the aim is to provide more health care for less money by injecting some competition, for instance, allowing hospitals like this to go independent. In one health district, 1989 started in an atmosphere of even greater turmoil. Shropshire had one of the longest waiting lists in the country, yet the managers wanted to close hospitals to help reduce their projected £2 million overspend. As the financial difficulties of the health service appear to deepen, is there anything an outsider from industry can do to help? Sir John Harvey Jones is one of Britain's best-known and most respected businessmen. He's agreed to visit Shropshire to see if he can use his experience to help sort out their difficulties and rethink their healthcare for the future.
I'm very flattered that Shropshire have invited me. They are a county that quite plainly have massive problems. There can't be a single person in this country who isn't worried about the health service. And there are very few people who are not at some time or other worried about their own health. We're none of us really quite sure whether the problems are that they haven't got enough money or that they don't run it right. Plainly, you could spend a lot more money, and it may be important to do so. And really, I don't quite know what the answer is.
One man is in charge of spending £80 million a year on Shropshire's health. That's a far bigger turnover than the average company. Ken Morris gave up the chance of being a footballer for a career in local government. Now, as general manager of the local health district, he's struggling to set a budget and a strategy for the coming year.
I think Sir John could help us in a number of ways. At worst, he could say we've got it all wrong. And quite honestly, I would find that helpful if somebody were from the outside to look and say, you've really made a mess of it. Alternatively, he can say, you've got 90% of it right, and there are just bits and pieces at the edges you need to tidy up. I can't wait, really, to hear what he has to say, and I'd be intrigued to see how he views the problems of Shropshire.
Ken Morris was appointed by and works very closely with the district chairman, Frank Jones.
Right, here we are now. Yeah. And now we can see the water garden that we were talking about. Yeah. Nice.
Frank Jones is a typical health chairman, a local businessman, self-made millionaire, and also chairman of Telford Development Corporation. Telford is a fast-growing new town in the middle of a huge rural county. There's a brand new hospital opening here, and that's part of Shropshire's problem. To help pay for it and make the cuts that are needed, Ken Morris wants to close smaller cottage hospitals spread around the county. But that's not a popular strategy. Since 1987, Ken Morris has been struggling to close 10 small hospitals. So far, he has closed just 6, which still isn't enough to make ends meet. Now he's trying to close the other 4.
This hospital, yes, is very much under threat. We've been reprieved 3 times and we're still waiting for the outcome of the area health meeting this month.
Could I just ask, what's it actually expected to happen to the waiting lists when Telford comes on stream at that workload?
The waiting lists that exist, a number
Any
of them
proposals that Ken Morris makes have to be passed by the District Health Authority. It's an appointed body, half of them councillors, that represents the local population and can be very political. In the past, Ken Morris has often failed to convince his authority he's right.
Because I think it should concern this august body that the people who are democratically elected in this county, to a man and to a woman, and regardless of political persuasion, unanimously are condemning the path that we're treading.
I mean, the morale of the staff is so low, it's unbelievable. They just keep moving the goalposts, and no one knows what's happening from one day to the next.
I think if the authority made it stand and said this is what's going to happen and do it, then we'd have to accept it.
Now Ken Morris and his managers are looking forward to Sir John's visit as they prepare for a crucial authority meeting that will decide Shropshire's future in just 3 weeks' time.
If this were a management board, you know how to run the business. But the fact is that you are being stopped from running the business efficiently by outside factors.
I don't think in the circumstances that we're in, with all the sort of public scrutiny that's going on for the health service generally, that it does any harm at all to have any outside influence which can be seen to be beneficial, I would think. Apart from which, he didn't mind going for a pint. I gather he calls a spade a spade.
I've been sent an absolute mass of paper by Shropshire to look at, and I have to confess to a sinking heart as I work through it. And when I think of the people who are responsible for overseeing the management of Shropshire, they must be absolutely bombed and boonswoggled by this.
How do you do at last?
Nice to meet you.
Well, thanks for putting up with me. I'm very interested in the problems that you've got. I don't know much about the National Health Service. I've read the piles of stuff.
Right.
But I'd like
The first thing I want to find out from Ken is what his feelings and attitude are about these waiting lists, which worry the hell out of me.
The waiting list could be brought down.
I accept that.
I'm not trying to corner you. I'm merely trying to understand.
Okay. What I'm saying is, first and foremost, you have to take a view on how important those waiting lists are. A lot of doctors would say, clinically, they are not important, right? There are a number of conditions which are not urgent.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the 8,000 people who are on the waiting list don't take the happy view that others perhaps are taking about whether they need that.
That's right.
And somebody presumably has told them they do need an operation, or they should have an operation, or they should have some sort of treatment.
Yes, a lot depends on the role of the GP in this.
Ken seems to me to have got the worst of both worlds. He's surprisingly relaxed about the waiting list, which is getting time. He's going to overspend on his budget.
What are those, Ken?
The problem we have this coming year is a potential overspending of about £2 million on our 80 million budget. And that is likely to continue if we don't correct it through for the next 10 years, in effect.
What, so you'll have spent 20 million over your budget?
Well, that's right. If it were
Well, how
to
can you do
accumulate-
that if you don't get the damn money?
Right, well, we can't. And so we have to take steps to bring the budget under control in the short term.
And I still don't quite understand what happens if you do just go on overspending by 2 million.
We won't be allowed to, very simply because...
So what does that mean?
The regional health authority and the
No,
Secretary of
but
State-
what happens? I mean, do they fire you, or do they shut the whole thing down, or does it taken over by Mrs. Thatcher, or what?
Technically, all of those things are possible.
I'm a bit like the Red Indians out of that meeting at the moment. I'm still riding round and round the wagon train, and I'm not too sure where the wagons are. It's particularly the doctors and nurses in the smaller hospitals who really feel the pain from the continuous changes of plan and the oscillations and vacillations between Ken and his political masters. The health authority are going to vote in just 2 weeks' time on Ken's latest plan, which involves shutting this hospital, amongst others.
So, Sister, can I introduce Sir John? This is Sister Rennan.
I want to meet the staff and the patients here, and in particular, Alan Gaynor, who's the local GP and also on Ken's management committee.
Been into the hospital on many occasions as an acute problem.
Oh dear, how long have you been in this time?
Oh, last Monday night.
Oh, not too bad.
No.
Yes, well, what would you do if the hospital wasn't there?
I'm going to keep this open.
Are you very worried about the financial situation in Shropshire?
Well, yes, we're worried if it's going to mean the closure of the hospital here, and because we see that we provide a service not just for the local people, but for almost the whole of South Shropshire.
But there's a lot of talk about trying to solve the financial problems by some sort of mixed economy solution. Do you think that's possible?
In this hospital itself?
Yes.
Well, we are actually at the moment thinking and looking at this possibility. We have 6 wards upstairs, which we're thinking if we can convert to private wards, upgrade them, put a lift in, which I believe the Friends are willing to pay for, and anything that will assist us to provide care for everybody. I don't really mind where the money comes from. If we can carry on providing care for people like Mrs. Nichols and other patients in the ward.
Well, it's beyond argument that there's the need, is there?
That's right.
Hello.
Hello, Grandma. This is Mrs. Payne. She's 101. Yeah.
How do you do, Mrs. Payne? I'm glad to see you. You're very colourful. Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you, Grandma.
I don't get the chance of kissing pretty girls very often.
She's one for the boys.
Is there any chance that one could let beds for looking after the elderly? Because presumably, if you're not taking them, they have to go somewhere.
If there is a need, and we know there is, but we're doing the investigation from our GPs and district nurses and saying, what have you got out there that is at home that would give the relatives a break, and we could have them in for a fortnight every so many 8 to 10 weeks. We thought perhaps they wouldn't object to paying a fee for having Grandma and Grandad in here for a fortnight.
I would guess so, because if it's Granny and Grandad that youngsters are bringing in, they want to go away on holidays.
I mean, it's all in draft form at the moment because 3 of us are working on the idea to present it.
Are you going to run your own business?
We'd like
Are you going to do a management buyout?
We'd like to.
Well, I think that's absolutely super to find a couple of entrepreneurs here who actually believe they could do something with this. And it seems to me if that could be done, that would help the sort of aims that the district is after a great deal. Because ultimately you could move more and more off the basic budget. You could also hopefully help the acute cases in other ways. I think that's great. But good luck anyway.
Having seen the cottage hospitals, I'm really very impressed at their openness of mind and willingness to think of almost any solution in the private or the public sector which would enable them to survive. Before I end the day, I must, however, see Telford, which, as well as being the new hospital, is also one of the causes of Shropshire's financial problems. Shropshire's other big problem is the waiting list. And that makes it even more difficult for Ken to get any sort of support for the measures that he's trying to put forward. I'm off now to Shrewsbury to see the district hospital, which is the one that's carrying out most of the operations, at least until Telford gets online, to see why they can't cope.
A lot of patients are quite short stay, and one problem is that we're constantly moving our better patients out to make room for those that are more acutely ill. And sometimes patients can actually be moved 4 or 5 times.
My first impression here is that the hospital is hopelessly overloaded and close to breaking down under the strain. I hope that Bob Wilson, the manager, who's also a doctor, can help me understand how we got into this mess.
We've actually had a man on a gynae ward. We've been so hard up for beds, haven't we? We've had to put a man on the sidewalk. I mean, it gets very chaotic. It gets uncontrollable because we can't refuse emergency admissions.
This is the problem with having a catchment area this size, is that
But the catchment area problem is going to get worse, isn't it? I mean, the worry I have is that Telford's only got a relatively small number of beds. You know, one of the worries one has about the strategy, as explained to me at the moment, is you've got this enormous waiting list in shop.
We have.
And nobody's been able to explain to me at the moment how any of the things that are being done is actually going to reduce the waiting list. I mean, I can't see that bringing Telford online is going to...
Well, I think you may be right. I think the point is there will be more surgical beds. The waiting list should reduce to some extent when Telford opens. I don't believe Telford's going to be the entire answer to 8,500 patients.
It couldn't be.
No.
I mean, you know, they'd have to be through like sort of Charlie Chaplin in modern times, wouldn't they?
That's right. I mean, I can tell you in 1 month we turned away 135 surgical admissions. On the day of admission, we had to phone up and say, don't come in, please.
But I mean, that must drive people absolutely mad.
Yes.
I have an arthritic hip, and I've been waiting for, well, it's over 2 years now that I've had this. And it's getting worse, and I really think that this is just not on.
If you look at this hospital must be an absolute nightmare to run. I don't know how you run it so economically when it's laid out the way it is.
Well, it's like running 2 small hospitals, of course. Our heating goes across the road, you know. I mean, when it snows,
well, that must be very kind. I mean, I'm sure the local authorities must be absolutely delighted for you heating their road for them.
But you can imagine the sort of wastage you get, you know, in things like...
Sadly, waiting lists aren't the only problem that Bob and this hospital are trying to cope with. Half of it's across the road in old Canadian wartime huts and in a really bad condition.
So then we're...
Oh, gosh, this is not quite up to hospital standard, is it?
No. This is a standard on many of the wards on this side of the road.
And that great hole in there.
Yes, and you can see where...
One can see where the roof's...
It would just be nice to have a little bit more money for replacing equipment. And I've got a cryo downstairs, which the gynecologists use, which is getting very dilapidated and is going to pack up any day. But we're talking of £5,000, £8,000 for that.
You're absolutely hornswoggled by your own systems, aren't you?
That's right.
I mean, I'd be tempted in your shoes to put my boots through it.
But then...
I think this whole thing is obviously short of funds. But that, sadly, is a situation which requires the very best and clearest management. Where are we off to now?
We're off to theatre next, which is this way.
That way?
Yes.
The hospital itself is just mind-boggling. I mean, I can imagine that people would die before they found the ward that they were trying to go to in this place. It's spread out, it's not logical, it's not clear what goes where or why. Parts of it are really, I mean, they're called the Nightingale ward, and I have little doubt they were designed by Florence. In fact, I thought I saw her once today. One of the things that worries me is the involvement, or the non-involvement, it seems to me, of the consultants and the doctors in the strategy that's being followed. I mean, do you feel that you, A, understand the strategy, and B, that you own it?
There's a tiered structure, which means that any individual is a long way from the decision.
This is the problem at the present time. We hear about things about 10th hand, and one hopes possibly with the change coming in the white paper that we might be more involved with the management.
I've read the white paper, and the only 2 bits that seem to me to give one some hope are, first of all, at least some command over the capital that you've got. I mean, the ridiculous thing is that just the shortest visit to Shropshire
You've got enormous potential capital realisation that you can make just from the land that you work
The
for.
white paper may change some of those attitudes, but I think another of the management's problems is that they are hamstrung by so many extraneous influences exerting pressure on them in making decisions.
If you want to try to carry out a strategy where you are deliberately trying to reduce things, you've got to actually have that strategy understood and supported by all the people concerned. And the people concerned are the doctors, the patients, the management, and the other services concerned. And at the moment, I don't think the strategy is clear. To the degree that there is a strategy, I can't see any evidence it's supported by the doctors. And certainly, the strategy is one which is almost calculated to ensure the general public will go into revolt.
I don't know where the money's gone out of it, as we all pay to it, and it's just one big shambles, I think. It's getting worse, isn't it?
I'm really worried for the people of Shropshire. Obviously, the system needs more money, but I have no doubt whatsoever that better and more pointed management would have a real effect on things like the waiting lists. But it'll only happen if everybody in the health business is on board and pulling together for the same objective in the same way. There are plainly a whole host of management problems here, but they're overlaid really by the political ones. And the reality of life is that in most management situations you have to manage some political situations, and you can do things to try and help to manage them. But here they just seem to have run out of both the will and the inventiveness of ways of managing their political environment. It's the chairman of the District Health Authority, Frank Jones, who carries the responsibility for this whole thing. Now I want to meet him and Ken to give them my impressions before they present their latest plans to the vital Health Authority meeting, which is now only a week away.
I mean, you know, I've talked to the guys who are on these committees, and half the time they don't even understand what they're bloody well talking about, because the simple issues are made...
Well, they're made very complicated.
Made very complicated.
But then they're in the business of making everything complicated, aren't they? That's the whole problem. When Ken Morris became the general manager, I had hoped that we would cut down the number of meetings and the amount of paper, and I think we did initially.
I think it's gone
the other way. But they're now more
way.
and more. I mean, we produce paper and
Again.
because money is a problem and the culture is a problem.
I see.
And that's why we had it. The people that have come into the service from outside have had the most incredible difficulties in coping with the culture. And some of them have come in.
I can understand. I mean, in sheer management terms, you have a problem which is, I think, an inevitable one, set up the way you are, that the strategies you want to follow really have to face the test of political acceptability.
Yeah.
And therefore, my first aim will be to find ways of getting more people involved in the sharing of the totality of the problem.
Yes, I think what I would say is that we have shared it, and what you've come in at a particular point in time where...
I think you've tried to share it.
Okay,
Ken, but it takes two to
Yes.
tango.
Well, it does.
And if they don't pick it, if they don't pick it up, you haven't shared it.
That's right. No, I accept that.
I bust a gut to try and get the presentation of the financial stuff simplified. Because you give too much, Ken. I mean, you know, with the best will in the world, there's a mass of detail and very little simplified stuff.
No, that's right, I agree, and we have done that. And it's the general public in Shropshire, because what we have done, I mean, I would actually take issue quite severely with you.
Feel free.
With the way in which, the amount of time and the way in which we have educated people. In fact, I would go so far as to say, in some cases, we've overeducated them.
Well, I'll take issue with you.
Yeah.
It's not the amount of time that you've spent trying to educate them, it's the end result as to what you achieve, Ken. I mean, you know, unfortunately,